but I'm looking at
you're correct.
page
The
1 of
terms
5 of the
reference.
terms of reference.
It's just after 11C, we go back to 11B, so you have to flip over 11C. Councillor Oliver, if I may, you
Yes.
read it correctly. The terms of the reference are there, and the committee composition and the term are under Section 3. Continue.
Yeah, well, that's just it, Mr. Mayor. I think it would be useful to have some external input on such a committee. And I really liked Councillor Height's suggestion of perhaps an accountant, for example, if we could get someone to volunteer who has that number crunching perspective, but not associated with our corporation. So I like the idea of the committee. I think it could be helpful. I don't think we're going to resolve the holding tank rate thing yet tonight. So even if that's all their mandate was at some point, would be to deal with that and give us some advice. So I'll support the motion, but I would like somehow to incorporate external input on that committee.
Councillor Columbus and then Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted a clarification with the blended rate to Ms. Robinson. Does that mean there would not be a separate septic tank rate? It would just be one blended rate?
Through the mayor to council, there would be one rate. Sorry, I guess we're using the term blended rate, and I'm getting a little bit confused as to what you're blending into this particular rate. So what option, I'll let James speak to exactly how he's outlined it in option 4, but what he's proposing is that that 4 would be fully blended, so that would be the cost for the hauled waste and does not include the septic tanks. Oh, it's the septic tank. I apologize, he just nodded. It's the septic tanks as well. So holding tanks, portable toilets, etc. Septic tanks would also all have the exact same rate of $20.29 per cubic meter.
So that's the blended rate, but there
Yes.
would not be any separate price tag for just septic waste.
Correct. It would be the same rate as the holding tank waste.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Brunton, please.
Well, my only comment is, nothing's fair when you come to a lot of our charges. We got pages and pages of the fees we charge for different organizations, and in respect to Councillor Height's major water users, well, if we charge them complete user fee, I'm sure they wouldn't be in business very long. They might move on to some place where it's cheaper. I go back to I think you used Councillor Columbus. He lives in town, I live in the country. I pump my tank out every 5 years. Is he subsidizing me? Yeah, maybe. I don't know what his monthly bills are, but he might be. But I still play hockey. Councillor Columbus doesn't play, so he's subsidizing me to use the arena. We go around in circles on it. But, if you want a committee, so be it. But personally, I don't want to be involved in it, so thank you.
Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I read somewhere that we couldn't have on a committee, any one of Norfolk County's committees, that we couldn't have this many councillors. I thought it had to be a mix of people, and that the minority on that committee had to be, or were the councillors. They couldn't represent a majority of the committee. So I have read that somewhere, but I can't say where. I'm not sure if it was in our procedural bylaw or what, but to have 5 on a committee, I think is wrong.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think perhaps it's a misinterpretation of a section of the Municipal Act that a committee with a majority of council members is a committee of council. When you look at that section of the Municipal Act, what it actually means is if you have any committee, it can be a committee of 3 members of council, that's still a majority of council if that's only membership. So it deals with the closed session provisions of the Municipal Act. Unless there is a majority of people who aren't council members, you have to meet the Section 239 requirements for open meetings, and you have to make sure that it's on the calendar and that we allow the public to go into a meeting. So that's part of what you're looking at when you're looking at the complement. If you had 5 council members, yes, this would be a meeting where the media would be invited to attend, the public would be invited to attend, and we'd be posting notice of all our meetings.
So if I may, it's acceptable to have 5. Thank you. We don't do that often, but maybe this is the first. Can't remember. Back to Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke, and I apologize about the terms of reference on the ad hoc committee. I don't have that attachment.
Yes, you do.
Mine jumps right to the staffing, the gapping report right after the,
Keep going. Jump over 11C, and I've mentioned that, but that's okay.
oh, so what page number?
Page number's 11C after 11B, not 11C before 11B. We'll get,
Okay, 'cause
yeah, I'm not sure I brought the right agenda tonight.
like
It's June 27th, yeah. Anyhow, continue.
brutalized, right? But like, yeah, we certainly don't need 5 counselors. I'd be happy with some of the financial staff of Public Works and some members to the public, because honestly, I had some calls from some pretty dignified individuals that definitely had some skills and would work for free, which is almost like being a counselor. But how can you go wrong? So I don't know if we can change those terms of reference right now, or something.
Well, I
but-
believe we can. If you will, I do have a motion on the floor, and I suggested to our clerk that perhaps we get through this one, and then we can look at the terms of reference and make some changes into a motion, and if that's acceptable. I mean, we can do it all now and add it to your and Councillor Wells' motion, whatever you like. Doesn't matter to me. Do it now, do it later. Councillor Black?
I'm going to do it now through an
Okay, then we will add it.
amendment to this motion here. Amend the
Either
motion.
add it on here, or you can make an amendment. I'm easy.
Okay, I'd like to amend the terms
Okay,
of
you wanna
reference,
write
because
this
that's
up
what
there?
this motion is referring to.
We're going to do an amendment then. That's
Yep.
in order.
Okay, and then it would say 3.1, committee shall be composed of 2 members of council, 1 staff, and 2 from the public. You want 2 staff? I don't really care. 2 staff and 1 member of the public? If everybody's happy with that, that would be fine by me. But
It's your amendment.
I see the county manager looking at me.
The staff report and the recommendations were carefully crafted for a reason, because a lot of, including a couple of accountants, sat around, and some engineers, sat around looking at this through a professional lens. Council has every right to create a committee, and you can give it any terms of reference you wish, and you can create any constitution of the committee you wish. But if you're going to have public representation, and appreciate, this isn't taxation, it's fees, but it's still money ultimately going to the public purse. You should either consider very, very specific reference for who those public members can be. It's important to make sure that if you are going to extend that offer, that every facet of the Norfolk community is represented, since ultimately everyone, and here's the quote, everyone poops. And everyone uses water. And everyone utilizes this system collectively. We know it is not common practice to bring members of the public onto committees that are going to make recommendations that have to do with fees or taxes. Because I can tell you ahead of time, the answer will be don't raise them. That's why this decision is supposed to be made by this council and not an advisory committee. It is a very difficult decision. We appreciate that. That's why this report has been brought back multiple times. You've been given multiple issues, multiple options. It's been carefully considered. If you are going to invite the public, then you need someone from industry. If there's no one there from industry, the recommendation will be, I can tell you ahead of time, we should make the big users pay. If you only have representatives of the big users, they'll say we should carry on as we are, or we should make septic and haulage pay more. You know what the end outcome of those will be. I want to say respectfully that either there should not be members of the public because you are they. You have been elected, you have a mandate, you have legitimacy, you represent the collective of Norfolk County. You can do this. If you are going to allow members of the public, though, it's important to have more than two because two will not be able to adequately represent all of the vested interests. And if we stack a committee, its recommendations won't be worth very much and won't assist you in, you're still going to have to make it ultimately a very difficult decision.
I appreciate that. I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
Okay, so just to bring us back together, we do have a motion to receive as information and that an ad hoc committee be formed according to the terms of reference that is in this report. Councillor Black.
Speak against the motion that's on the floor. I don't think we need the committee at all. If we're going to have 5 councillors on it, that's the majority, then just bring it to council. So I'm just not going to support it.
Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. The problem with having 5 councillors is we might as well have all of us. We do that now in our rate meeting. The problem is we don't have a solution. So this committee is to look for a solution. We've heard from our staff that the best that they can bring forward. We've heard from DFA the best that they can bring forward. We still have the highest water bill in the province. I'm looking for a third opinion. If I have to bring in 5 people from the public and they all have accounting designations or whatever designation they are, I don't even care if they can run a calculator or an Excel spreadsheet, I'd be happy with that. Right now we need solutions. And that's what we need. I'll amend the motion that we have 2 councillors, 3 staff, and 4 people from the public in the committee. Something, we need a better solution than just being number 1 in the highest cost of water. And it's been years.
And the composition is, again, your amendment that you're proposing for the...
2 councillors.
2 councillors, and I'm sorry, we just didn't get it all.
3
2,
staff.
3 staff,
4 members of the public.
total of 9.
And I would expect that from the recommendations from that committee, it goes to the program review committee. And then it can come to council if that's what it takes to make it fair and equitable for everyone. I think coming out of this committee, it's going to get fixed. All right?
I should bite my tongue, but I'm going to tell you, Councillor Height, I'm sure glad it didn't come to the program review meeting today. Anyhow, that's another story. So you want the Councillor Height that the terms of reference be amended to have a composition of 2 councillors, 3 staff, 4 members of the public? Now, I will need a seconder for that amendment. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? No seconder? It's an amendment. So you heard the amendment. It is the terms of reference be amended for 2 councillors, 3 staff, 4 members of the public. Any other discussion? Councillor Geisens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support this committee or whatever. We need to get something done. We are not going to find anything that's going to work better than this council and coming up with something. Yes, we subsidize, but we subsidize a lot of things. I have to have my septic tank pumped every 5 years or 4 years, depending on what's going on. Yes, we are somehow subsidizing people with holding tanks because they got to have it pumped more often. Huh? I'm sorry. To me, getting all these people together, we are not going to get any kind of consensus, and if there is something that comes forward, we probably won't be able to live with it. To me, let's look at what we have in front of us and deal with it, as far as I'm concerned tonight, and I will not support the committee. Thank you.
Councillor Sonnenberg.
I will not support a committee. I don't want to see another report. We had a consultant come before us here a year or so ago and told us what to do, and we rejected it. What he said was, everybody pay for the service they receive. If you live on a sewer system, you pay for that system. If you have a holding tank, you pay to have it pumped. If you have a septic tank, you pay to have it pumped. Pay for the service you receive. End of discussion. Thank you.
It might be the end of discussion. We'll see. Yes, Councillor Brunton.
Just want to correct something to my good colleague, Mr. Height. You said we have the highest rates in water and sewer. We do not. If you recall, at the time we dealt with the water and sewer budget, I provided the figures for the city of Brantford, who have one treatment plant and one water plant. And their rates were higher than ours, and we got, what, 5 of each? I think that's what we had. 4 and 5, whatever. And their rates were higher. So I think it's never going to be fair. It's never going to be fair. So anyways, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Columbus, on the amendment now, this is on the composition
Well, this
of the
is-
ad hoc. That's what we're talking about here, folks.
This whole thing has been studied to death for the last 2 years, and I cannot support terms of reference to include an ad hoc committee either. It's more, that third paragraph keeps looking more and more after hearing the discussion. It keeps looking better all the time.
I am ready to call the question on the amendment, but if there is any further debate, I certainly welcome it. I will read it if you like, Councillor Brunn. Councillor Hyde has moved, Councillor Wells has seconded, that the terms of reference be amended to have a composition of 2 councillors, 3 staff, 4 members of the public, total of 9. Anyone else? Let's call the question. Those in favor of the amendment? Those opposed? That is defeated. I'm going to go back to the motion. Hyde has moved, Wells has seconded that this report, 1724, Water and Wastewater Ad Hoc Committee and options for rate charge for processing waste haulage be received, and that an ad hoc committee be formed according to the terms of reference in this report. Debate? Those in favor? Those opposed? That's defeated. Thank you. How about, well, Councillor Black?
See, I'd move that we receive it as information and we approve option 4.
I'm just waiting for it to be written, so just give our clerk a second, please. Option 4 be approved. Report. Thank you for your patience. Councillor Black has moved, and then I will just read this, and then I'll ask for a seconder. That report, FS 1724, be received as information, and that council endorse option 4 in the report. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Geisens. Now I will open this resolution for discussion. Councillor Hyde, I saw your hands. Did you
Yes, Mr. Mayor, could you divide the question?
divide it?
And I'd call for a recorded vote on the option 4, approval or refusal.
You want a recorded vote on both parts, or just the one on option 4?
Just the one on option 4.
That's the way I heard it from you. I just wanted to make sure before we get into it. So we're going to do a division here, and I'll allow you to speak on each motion before we vote. The first motion, should we do the option 4 first, or the information? I think it makes sense. Doesn't matter. So I'll leave the first one on here if you want to put the second one in that council endorse option 4. Or do you want me just to put it here and here? It's already moved, sure. You're going to do a recorded vote, so I will call the question on the first part. The resolution that's been moved and seconded is that report be received as information. Any discussion? If not, those in favor? Okay, that is carried. We've now received the report as information. We got that much done. Mr. Clerk, I'll leave the second part to you if you will. I'll even give you that if you like. I'm going to just ask for any comments or debate, and then I'm going to go to the recorded. So I'm going to go with you first and then you, Councillor Black, if that's okay. Thank you so on the option 4
Yeah,
motion,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for allowing us to have a
Oh,
little
no
bit of
problem at
further
all. It
debate.
was important.
I'm not going to support the motion, and I'll vote nay when it comes to it. And I still feel that a 100% increase for the holding tank waste generators, i.e. folks that have a holding tank, all at once is too much. It's just too much. It's going to get us right back where we were. So, Mr. Mayor, should this motion fail, I would be putting a motion forward that would, over a period of 5 years, and you don't need to record this yet, but if this one fails, over a period of 5 years, the rate for holding tank treatment be raised to equate the rate for septic tank treatment. But that's going to be phased in should this motion fail. Thanks.
Councillor Black? Yes.
Thank you. Well, this has been a very difficult one, and, you know, everybody around the table, we try to support like a user fee and cost recovery, and, you know, and yes, sometimes it doesn't work because we do end up subsidizing, like Councillor Brunton said, arenas. But I think this is a compromise position in this regard, in that we're not bringing it up all the way to full cost recovery, and other people will be subsidizing that. But we are bringing it up from what it was. So we're not going to win no matter what we do on this decision. So to me, we're still moving towards cost recovery, which was our mandate given to staff to come back. They fulfilled that obligation, and around this table, we're trying to be fair for everyone and not burden some people too much, and it's a compromise. So I'll support the motion.
Okay, to the motion, Councillor Brunton, then Height.
Just for clarification on Councillor Oliver's motion there, are we not dealing with the blended rate right now at $10? Is it not a blended rate of $10?
Our current rate at this moment is a $10 per charge, per cubic meter. Do you want to clarify?
Blended, isn't it?
Through the mayor to council, we don't currently have a blended rate.
Okay.
There's a certain rate for septic tank, and there's a separate rate.
You're right,
for-
sorry, yes. Yeah, now the
for
holding
for
tank
holding
rate is
tanks.
$10.
The holding tank rate is $10.
The septic
yes.
and the portable toilets was all dealt with in the original motion back in December of 2015. It's only the holding tank that was carried on through 16 and subsequently went to $10. Thank you, Lee. Go ahead.
I'll call it there, thank you.
Okay.
Ah, dear.
Okay, I think Councillor Height, you're next, then Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I just want to bring to council's attention that people connected to our septic system right now pay $1.62 a cubic meter to dispose of their wastewater. This rate, should it move ahead, will be $20.29, and they still have to pay to get it trucked. Maybe what we need to look at then is running sewage pipes all over the place in Norfolk County, because clearly it must be the cheapest method to move the septage around. At $1.62, who's subsidizing who? Thank you.
Councillor Sonnenberg?
Thank you again. Councillor Oliver and others have suggested that to increase the rates to holding tank holders to what it costs to process their product would be too high. Well, to those people I say, do what I had to do. Put in a septic system. If you live in a small lot somewhere where you can't have a regular a regular tile bed, tertiary systems can probably solve your problem. I can't have a holding tank on my farm. I have to put in a septic system. The same should apply to everybody. If you don't like the rates of a holding tank, put in a septic system. See what you think of those rates.
Councillor Columbus?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just clarification to Ms. Robinson. So really, with this motion that we're talking about now, that 2018 rate of 2029 per cubic meter for the blended rate, I believe that it'll be less than the septage waste, which was 24.78 this past year, for its current. So actually, it'd be $4.78 lower cost for the people with septic tanks. Is that the way I interpret it?
Through the mayor to council, yes, that is what is being proposed. There will be a new blended rate that will reduce the cost for the septic tank holders.
Septic tank.
Septic tanks, sorry,
So-
septic systems.
So they would be getting a break on this, the way it's worded.
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
Are we ready to call the question? Recorded vote time. Councillor Wells? Yes, sir.
We vote, could I ask Ms. Robinson her opinion on this, Mr. Mayor? Because I must truthfully tell you, I am confused. Is this doing a good thing, a bad thing for our water users? And Mr. Mayor, somebody with more expertise than me had better try their best to educate me before I take a vote.
Sorry, thank you. There's considerable feedback from that particular unit this evening. Through the mayor to council, I'm not sure that I can answer your question, but I will try to answer your question. We are obligated through legislation to ensure that our water and our wastewater system is fully cost recovered, which means that we have to collect rates that pay for current operations as well as put away money for future works that need to be done. We do that for a variety of reasons. Development charges contribute some money towards future upgrades that are required. In theory, at the end of the day, our rates for both water and wastewater basically have to net zero. So we can't make a profit on them, and we can't be using the tax rates to subsidize. We can't use the tax levy to be subsidizing the rates either. At the end of the day, all of the rates that are being proposed by staff ensure that we're compliant with the legislation. It is extremely expensive and onerous if we basically had everybody pay exactly what their fair share is. If you can imagine, anybody, say, in Waterford would get a different bill because they're connected to the Waterford system. Everybody in Cortland would get a different bill. Everybody in Delhi would get a different bill. It would be quite an onerous task to have all of the different rates being charged to each person for that. And if you took that even further, you get into things like, well, I don't use the arena, so my taxes should be adjusted because I don't use an arena. Well, I don't swim at the pool, mine should be that. I compost, I don't generate anywhere near the volume of garbage that my neighbors do. I want my taxes to do with that. So in reality, the municipal system really exists with everybody paying a little bit more or a little bit less for the general benefit of the community. The rates being proposed here ensure we're in compliance, and they are in keeping with the direction that council had provided, which was to make sure that people are being charged a reasonable rate based on their contribution, not nickeling and diming it down to the very end. Staff are very comfortable with this report. You know, for all of council has been back and around in 6 ways on this. Staff have spent way more time bringing that forward. All of the questions that have been asked by staff. We've reviewed this at great stuff. The original information that came forward, probably I guess a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years ago now, with respect to the rates, is, you know, truly what that group should be paying for that. recognizing the fact that it was, because of historical reasons, it was a significant increase that could potentially cause them some significant hardship over time. And although the significant increase was shown, I don't think that the ramifications of that were articulated. And that's what caused a lot of the upset, is that it was a huge increase, and that's what caused it. At the end of the day, staff are very comfortable that this rate going forward is reasonable, and it's not necessarily fair, but it's in keeping with the idea that sometimes some people pay a little bit more and some people pay a little bit less in order to have a good system that actually treats everything properly and moves it forward. I'm very comfortable with option 4 going forward as a reasonable solution. Council's other alternative, I believe, has been articulated by Councillor Oliver, that these rates be phased in over a longer period of time. That's another option for council to consider. I do think from a staffing point of view that we do need to do something with this rate, and we do need to move it forward. And whether it's something that council chooses to implement as written in this report, or if you choose to stage it so that people had longer time to be prepared for it, or create other solutions, that would be a decision for council.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for that explanation. Very lengthy explanation, but I think you've said that we are, at least, not everybody will be happy, but we're trying to be fair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Clerk, let's get on with the recorded vote and see where this goes. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver.
No.
Councillor Columbus.
Yes.
Councillor Geisens.
Yes.
Councillor Height.
No.
Councillor Sonnenberg.
No.
Councillor Wells.
Yes.
Councillor Black. Yes. Councillor Brunton. Yes. Mayor Luke.
No.
The motion carries 5-4.
The motion carries 5-4. I am going to make a couple comments, since I can't get into the debate, to give my rationale, which I'm entitled to do, why I voted against this. I think what we've just passed here, in my personal opinion, is asking for a lot of trouble. I think it's not a good thing to pass. 2015, our holding tank people were paying $6.34 a cubic meter. So an average tank is 9.12 cubic meters, so they were paying $57 and change for a pump out. That carried over into 2016, and then in 2016, for this year, we changed to $10 a cubic meter, so the $57 per pump out without trucking now became $91.20, an increase of 57% in 1 year. Now you're saying in 2018 with this motion that we're going to up it to $20.29, so now one pump out will be, plus trucking, without trucking, will be $203 a pump out. Some people pump out once per month, usually full-time residents pump out. So whereas their pump out fee in 2 years ago in 2015 was an average of $670 a year to the municipality, now next year they will be going up 3.5 times to $2,436. That is totally unacceptable increase to anybody for any user rate in this county, in my opinion. I know a gentleman and a lady, they're in their 80s, never owned a car in their life, live in downtown Simcoe, and 18% of their tax bill each year went to roads. Our system isn't fair, but nevertheless, they know that we need roads. The difficulty we had, and still is with frequency. And talk about septic tanks. Yes, I pump mine out every 7 years, once every 7 years. So I don't mind paying $300 every 5 years. But I just do not know how people are going to be able to afford, in 5 years, 60 pump outs at $203 a pump out. This will mean that we will go about more than 3 times an increase in holding tank pump outs from 2015 to 2018. Actually, more like 2016, because up until last fall it was $6.34. You know cottage country as well as I do. Many of these people have very small lots. They have such small lots they can't put in an affordable septic system. Many people have hillside lots into hills. Along the lake, there are a lot of hills. Some people can't, even if they want to put a tertiary in, cannot do it. A lot of people, when they buy their homes, now they're going to be stuck because who is going to buy a house that's going to cost them $203 a month plus trucking just to get rid of their waste disposal? Yep, 100% recovery, yep, that's the way to go, isn't it? Let's remember that at user time when we have to jack our arena rates from $120 an hour to $300 an hour. Let's remember that. What percentage of the people use our arenas? And I'm all for them. They were there when I was a kid. I'm glad they're there. I think this, Councillor Oliver said it best. We're right back to square one now. We've gone full circle. We got ourselves in a pickle. We didn't talk about frequency. Now we're full circle. Okay, let's move on. We've got a few more reports. Decisions made, and that's okay. I accept it, but I don't agree with it. Okay, we want to go on now to our next staff report, which is gapping savings for staff vacancies, 11C. Mr. Johnson, you're back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With consultation from several staff as outlined in the consultation section of the report, Amy Fanning, Deputy Treasurer, prepared report FS 17-25, gapping savings for staff vacancies that I'm presenting to you tonight. Council directed staff to prepare a report related to dollars saved from vacant positions or gapping. Finance and payroll staff have spent considerable time analyzing and calculating gapping dollars for 2016. This equaled approximately $226,600, which is the net savings of gapping less costs of temporary staff measures to continue supplying services to the county. Staff conducted research with other municipalities as outlined in the report. Municipalities such as Toronto, Niagara Region, or Haldimand County do not have a formal policy. We found 2 municipalities with written documentation related to gapping. The City of Ottawa has a policy on gapping dollars, which coincidentally is what Norfolk County currently practices. The other, Waterloo, which was provided to staff from council, is part of an overall reserve policy. Staff are recommending the salary gapping procedures continue as in past practice and be incorporated in Norfolk County's budget guidelines. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Questions of staff. Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm very disappointed with this report, of course. I know we had some discussions about this during budget time, looking for ways to save money, and then I get a 1-2-page report that doesn't even give us positions, or where's the 2015 numbers to compare? How are these being addressed? Now, why do I think gapping is important? It's because this council approves a certain position. We know at every budget time there's an FTE that gets approved. For that approval, we expect a service. I don't care if it's the Grumple Grommet counter or your shovel handle holder. We expect that service to get done. Now, if there's a gap and that position's not filled, how are we to know that that service is being looked after? What we know is half of the money from the empty positions is being burned up in temporary help, yet what department? There's so many missing questions here. I don't even want to go over this report. I want to defer it and send it back to staff, and maybe next time when I bring my motion, I'm going to have to include an Excel template for some data. Why aren't we having by department, by year, what positions are missing? If there's a position that's been gapped for 3 years, yeah, I'm eliminating it right off of this report, because clearly we don't need it. Or if you're using temporary funds from one department over into another division, either we're not providing the service that we said we did, or there's something fundamentally wrong with that. That's not how businesses run. When we say customer service rep, and if that position sits empty and you've moved it over to the bulldozer driver, that's not right. Mr. Mayor, this report, I don't even know why we received it like this. Honestly, where are we going with such a vague report? And that's all I have to say.
Councillor Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Just very quickly, I understand how you apply it as a credit, what do you call unallocated revenue. I read through all that and I looked it up, and you're right on the money. It's in the 2016 budget. And my question, I guess, is, and I agree with Councillor Height, I would like to see a little more detail, like by department, position, time, vacant, and the cost. Very simple to me. And my other question is, does this include the health department?
Mr. Johnson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it includes all of Norfolk County.
Well, so you apply the health department vacancies to the uncollected or unallocated revenue in our levy budget? 'Cause that's the way you show it.
Through the mayor, yes, it would be all employees countywide, whatever that was calculated into that credit, which we would put under unallocated.
Why would the health department, when they have several vacancies, the last I looked at, would that credit not have to be applied to the health department because they get subsidized by the province? There has to be some credit shown there. If they're paying the wages, wouldn't they want to see the credit?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a good question. There are multiple areas in the health department that get different forms of subsidies. There's capping and things like that with the different areas. So it'd be difficult to put them in the right buckets. I don't know if Ms. Miranda could add anything for that.
Through the mayor, there's different buckets, not just for public health, but also for all the other divisions that we serve. They all have some level of ministry funding. Most actually comes from the ministry, and there's a smaller component of levy impact.
Well, I recall a report, Marlene, where you showed 16 vacancies at one point in your department. And I don't know what the cost of those vacancies are, for how long or whatever, a total figure out of the $221,700 that you show in this report. I guess, Your Worship, my recommendation would be to refer this report back to staff and provide that additional information, and we can deal with it at a later date. I'll make that a motion. Thank you.
A motion for a deferral of this report back to staff for more information, correct? Do I have a seconder? I'm looking for a seconder before. Okay, Councillor Height, so we will speak to the deferral first. You've got that down? Brunton and Height? Motion on the floor to defer report FS 1725 back to staff for more information. On the deferral, Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't support the deferral, and I think my name is on the motion to approve this recommendation that's in the report. The only thing that was important to me in this report was the fact that staff do track how much money is saved when positions are vacant, whether it's for a day, a week, a month, or whatever it is. They track that. They track how much money is spent to temporarily fill those positions to ensure that a level of service continues to be provided. And the money that's left over ends up essentially being a credit on the end of our budget at year end. That's all I need to know. I do not need, nor do I want, a whole bunch of additional information department by department by department. That's just creating more work for staff that, in my opinion, council does not need to know. So I do not support deferral in order to get more information.
Other discussion on the deferral? I hear none. I will call the question. Those in favor of the deferral? Those opposed? Deferral motion is defeated. Thank you. I have the recommendation that's printed on 11C, the first page of the report. In front of me, I do have a mover, and that would be Councillor Oliver, but I would need a seconder to get it on the floor. Councillor Black. Now I will ask for discussion. Oliver and Black have moved and seconded that we receive this capping savings for staff vacancy 17-25 report for be received, and that council approves staff to continue with the past practice of applying savings from vacancies as a credit to the tax-supported operating budget. Any discussion on this? Councillor Height, please.
Recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote, Mr. Clerk. Anyone else? Okay, we're ready to go when you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other way around today. Councillor Brunton. Councillor Black. Yes. Councillor Wells. Councillor Sonnenberg. Yes. Councillor Height.
No.
Councillor Geisens. Yes. Councillor Columbus. Yes. Councillor Oliver. Yes. Mayor Luke.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2.
Thank you. We have one more report, I believe. I'm keeping my eye on the clock. We'll go now to 11D. This is Staff Report 17-27. This is both the Simcoe and Delhi BIA operating budgets for the year 2017. James, is this yours? Yes, I thought it was. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Report FS 17-27 has been prepared by Kathy LaPlante, which is a routine annual report presented to you tonight. The Municipal Act requires that the BIAs submit their budgets to Council for their approval. Council may approve the budget of a local board, but may not add to it or make specific deductions. The budget summaries of each BIA and their respective minutes approving their budgets follow the report. Once the budget is approved, the properties within the BIA boundaries will be levied and collected by Norfolk County through their tax billings. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions on these two budgets to our treasurer? I need a mover, Councillor Black, and I already have a seconder, Councillor Oliver, that these two operating BIA budgets be received and that Simcoe and Delhi Business Improvement Area 2017 operating budgets be approved as they are submitted here. And further, that staff prepare the bylaw to approve the special BIA levy to all rateable properties within the Simcoe and Delhi BIAs. Any discussion, Councillor Black?
Just to let council know that the Downtown Simcoe BIA had their annual general meeting, and the membership discussed the budget, and really the biggest discussion was centered more around the Norfolk Hotel and the state that it was in than really some of the numbers that were on the list here. Also, it's maybe it'd be of interest for you to know that the total assessment, the commercial assessment, because it is split, the residential is not part of this BIA tax. It's just mostly the lower area, and that commercial assessment represents about $725,770. So it's a substantial amount of commercial assessment in Simcoe and Norfolk County.
Thank you. Anything further? If not, those in favor of the motion? It's carried. I'm going to, any reports of council members sitting on committees? If not, I'm going to move to the bylaws. I will need a mover and seconder to pass these bylaws. Councillor Geisens has moved. Councillor Sonnenberg has seconded. The bylaw 90P 2017 and bylaws 28Z 2017 through 30Z 2017 inclusive, and bylaws 2017-71 through 2017-75 inclusive be passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, affixed with the corporate seal. Is there any discussion? If not, those in favor? That's carried. Those bylaws are now approved. There are no notices of motions. There are 3 notices of motions this evening. I will deal with them one at a time. They're certainly not up for debate until the motion comes forward in 2 weeks, but the first one, Councillor Height, is your notice of disbandment of Legacy Fund Committee. I'll give you the opportunity if you wish to read that. If not, we'll obviously be dealing and debating in 2 weeks. Your call.
I think I'll just keep my mouth shut, Mr. Mayor.
We'll move on then to the roadside cutting policy review. Councillor Black, do you wish to read that? We can't discuss it till it's there. We've read it. 2 weeks. You okay? Thank you. And finally, Councillor Wells, restrictions upon the presentation of budget amendments reports. Do you wish to read that to us? It's your call.
I'll shut my mouth as well.
Okay, now I know you wish I would do that as well, but we've got a little ways to go yet here. I've got some time for some very brief other business. Mr. Johnson, do you have any other business for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I do not.
Candy Webb, anything? Mr. Chris Baird? Mr. County Manager?
No, sir.
Mr. Clerk?
Sir.
Mr. Bill Cridlin?
Nothing this evening.
Okay, Ms. Miranda?
I would just like to give a quick update on some of the activities at the County Medical Building in Port Dover. We have been actively working with the physician group in Port Dover, and we are pleased to say that we have 3 physicians who are actively practicing, Dr. Malo, Dr. Bajwa, and Dr. Kang, who are increasing their roster and actively working there. They have made an application for the Family Health Organization, and we are very optimistic that we'll hear of the approval soon. And thirdly, we have 2 other physicians that we're working on and will be welcoming into the center in August to become part of that Family Health Organization as well.
It's good news there, and I just want to add to that very, very quickly that on behalf of this council, I want to thank a number of our staff, Marlene, primarily under your direction, Shelley, Lydia, that have gone down. It's a building that we own, but we are now in charge of operating for these incoming and current doctors. And the doctors that I have been told are very, very pleased with the way that that medical center is moving forward. I want to thank staff. And I know there's more than just 3 of you, but for a while that took your lives over, and it's paying dividends now. Thank you very much. And Ms. Robinson?
Nothing else this evening.
Okay, I hope we can get through everyone and maybe just, I have a number of things, but I'm going to save mine probably till next week. Councillor Height?
I think I'll save myself for tomorrow when all the irate holding tank customers call me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Geisens? Councillor Columbus?
One short item to Ms. Robinson. I just noticed in the information package, notice of study commencement. This is for Highway 3 rehabilitation between Tillsonburg and Delhi, right past Councillor Geis's door, and 15.8 kilometers. And a week or 2 ago, I asked you about the traffic signal lights installation at Highway 59 and 3 and on the west side of Delhi. Wonder if that can be incorporated into this study?
Through the mayor to council, absolutely. We will be forwarding it as part of our comments to the ministry as part of that study.
Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Oliver?
Mr. Mayor, I'll keep my mouth shut as well, so nothing.
Seems to be a new expression around the table here. Councillor Sonnenberg?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier tonight, we once again dealt with the issue of the purchasing of the new stretchers, as to whether or not they should have been part of the budget process or not. That really doesn't bother me, whether they're part of the budget process or we just approve them outright at a meeting. What bothers me is the prices of these things. We are being held hostage by the companies that provide us with health and safety equipment. There's little competition out there, so they can just about charge what they want. $55,000 for a stretcher. I can buy a well-equipped Lexus for $55,000. $850,000 for a fire truck. I can buy a small fleet of trucks for $850,000. So, we pay too much. I don't know what the recourse is. There's not that much competition out there, so once again, but to me, it's gouging. It's like Home Depot charging $50 for a sheet of plywood because they know there's a hurricane coming and and people got to board up their windows. It's not fair, and I don't know what we can ever do about it, but we're paying too much for this equipment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, we've finished part of the road construction, second phase from Main Street, on Main Street from Main to the Tambar. And unfortunately, I'm getting some calls. There seems to be some water issues there on the roadside, and I think I've spoken to Ms. Robinson, and she's going to explain what's going to happen.
Ms. Robinson, please.
Through the mayor to council, staff are aware of the deficiencies from the first phase of, or sort of from the second phase, last year's construction, and we're working with the contractor to get that repaired under warranty, and so that will be done before the end of the 2017 construction season.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to that, and I'm sure it'll make the residents, or the merchants happy. Mr. Mayor, we are also replacing, doing some work on, next to the blue line, next to the cemetery there. We're replacing pipe there. Apparently it's a plastic pipe, and we're replacing it with plastic pipe, and somebody has asked why we're doing that for $160,000, and maybe Ms. Robinson could explain the reason for that, please.
Through the mayor to council, there's a variety of difficulties that we've been experiencing with that pipe. In addition, there are some pieces of cast iron pipe, et cetera, still left in there. It's been an older repair job and variety of work that's been done, so it's a bit piecemealed, et cetera. And so we're fixing that up now when we have the opportunity to do so, and that will assist when the development continues to take place in that area.
Thank you again, and I'm sorry about taking the time, Mr. Mayor, but I had 5 items, and I'll try. The next one is a pretty simple one. I had a request from a person who represents St. Paul's Church. They'd like a directional sign at the corner of Main and Market. Do we get involved in that?
Through the mayor to council, typically we do not get involved in directional signs. There are some programs through economic development where signage is installed, but not typically for things like a church.
Okay, thank you. And my last one, Mr. Mayor, is just to invite everyone who is listening to Port Dover on July the 1st. We'll be continuing our yearly celebration. This will be the 150th year, and we look forward to seeing and hosting as many people who can get to the community, the beautiful community of Port Dover.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wells. Councillor Black.
Question through you to Lee, and it's in regards to connecting link money. Is there any connecting link money available to do Norfolk Street North from Davis to the end of the 4 lanes? Like we've done all the way up to the underpass, and then coming down from the north was done to the 4 lanes, but that section in between is deteriorating. I was quite surprised the other day when I went up there how much it's really deteriorated. So is that a possibility? Can we look into some connecting link money for that section sometime?
Through the mayor to council, we can certainly consider that in the next round of funding. As you will recall, we were successful with the Queensway West, and so that work will be undertaken as part of the Connecting Links funding. And so there are other connecting links that we'll be applying for as well as part of the next round.
Is staff aware of the condition of that section I just outlined?
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Councillor Brunton.
Question, Your Worship. I see we purchased Haldeman's interest in the MRF.
Last page, your information package. Continue.
How much did we pay? Lee?
Through the mayor to council, I don't have that figure here with me this evening, but I'll be happy to circulate it tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a number of items that I will defer till next week, and I know some of them residents want me to bring up, but they'll have to wait till next week. But this past Friday, I'll do one item. Mr. Cribbs and I attended our quarterly WOWC, the Western Warden Caucus session in Brantford this time, or I should say more specific, Brant. 2 main items that were interesting to me was, number one, the organization's move to go after more of the provincial gas tax. It will be doubled from 2 cents to 4 cents a liter in 2022, and they'll be definitely going after an additional $40 to $50 million that they want to flow to rural municipalities, and they want it based on per capita funding. As you know, the federal gas money we can use for infrastructure things, but the Ontario still is for public transportation, and many rural areas that contribute by buying the gas don't get the benefit. The other thing is on your desk here, seeing that I have 2 minutes left by my clock. The other thing at the Friday session was the update on the SWIFT program. 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph, I left this on your desk, you don't have to look at it right now. Third paragraph sort of talks about